Welcome back to this new module on diabetic dyslipidemia. Diabetic dyslipidemia, as we see, is something like, is the dyslipidemia same across all the people, or in diabetes is it something different? So does the treatment strategies differ between individual to individual compared to non-diabetic with diabetic? Does it differ? So these are the few things that comes to our mind, and we will dwell on to this module on dyslipidemia in diabetes. Intra-heart study is one study which had looked at the various risk factors that are associated with the increase in the incidence of myocardial infarction. So there are about 15,000 subjects in the control arm, and the other arm was carrying another equal number of subjects spread across about 50 countries across the state. Looked into various factors which was associated with myocardial infarction. So as you see over here, the odds ratio of hypercholesterolemia, it is not diabetic dyslipidemia per se. Yeah, the odds ratio of dyslipidemia per se is associated with increase in the incidence of MI than the other risk factors per se like diabetes, hypertension, smoking. It also looked into various other factors also. It looked into obesity, it looked into physical activity, it was looking into the nutrients in the food. Various other factors were also looked in by this study. There were about 9 parameters which were sedentariness, everything was looked into. So there were 9 parameters which was looked into. So the one factor which was striking among all these things is dyslipidemia. When it combines with the diabetes, the risk was exponentially increasing compared to all others. So we need to understand, per se, in the presence of diabetes, dyslipidemia has to be addressed because of the increase in the incidence of myocardial infarction. What we treat diabetes is all about. It is prevention of micro and macrovascular complication. So dyslipidemia is something which we need to cater in all these individuals. The structure of lipoprotein, we will just dwell briefly into the basics, because there is a lot of misconception about cholesterol, the lipoprotein, everything. So we need to understand the misconceptions or the misunderstandings that we have developed over the years of our learning. So one thing that we need to understand is, the first thing is the cholesterol per se. When we mean by cholesterol, the cholesterol are not dissolved in water. So be it cholesterol, or when it gets hydrolyzed to become a cholesterol ester or a triglyceride, they cannot be dissolved in water. So they need a medium for it to be carried forward. So this medium consists of a proteinaceous outer layer. So as you see over here, you have the cholesterol esters, you have the triglycerides, they are water insoluble. So they have to be carried inside a medium or inside a vehicle for it to get transported from one organ to the other, or get transported by the blood. You need a medium. This medium is made up of a proteinaceous outer coat. So you have a monolayer of phospholipid, and the inner layer of cholesterol is also present. So cholesterol, cholesterol esters, triglycerides, we have these things which is surrounded by cholesterol, and there is an outer layer of phospholipids. So this forms the vehicle which carries cholesterol and cholesterol esters. Per se, lipoprotein doesn't mean cholesterol. Cholesterol directly, it cannot be measured also. So we always measure this lipoprotein. So what are these lipoproteins? Basically whatever we call the total cholesterol. The total cholesterol is involves every other thing. So HDL or LDL, chylomicrons, VLDL, all these things. So these are all lipoproteins. Okay. So once these lipoproteins are formed, so triglycerides, chylomicrons, triglycerides is not a lipoprotein. Triglycerides are carried inside the lipoproteins. So VLDL, LDL, IDL, HDL, lipoprotein A, or the small dense LDL, whatever. These are all the lipoproteins which can be transported from one part of the body to the other part of the body for various functions. The function that it gives to these various lipoproteins, whether it is a HDL or VLDL or chylomicron or anything, this function is given by apolipoproteins. So these are the specific proteins which are apart from the outermost phospholipid layers. There are various apoproteins which stick on the outer surface of the phospholipid layer, and these apolipoproteins give the specific function for that lipoprotein to do. So these apolipoproteins can be like ApoB, ApoB48, ApoB100, ApoE, ApoC1, ApoC2. There are various apolipoproteins like this. So they serve, what do these apolipoproteins do? They are important for a structural role. For this lipoprotein to have a structural role, this apolipoprotein is important. They act as a ligand for the lipoprotein receptors. Where should this lipoprotein should go and work? Whether they should go to the LDL receptor or to the intestine. So these things are given by the lipoprotein receptors. This apolipoprotein serve as a ligand for the lipoprotein receptors. So that is given by these apolipoproteins. It gives the formation of lipoprotein, whether it moves from one form of lipoprotein to the other, say VLDL to IDL, IDL to LDL. So this sort of formation, VLDL to IDL and IDL to LDL, when it forms, or from the chylomicron to VLDL, when this forms, this sort of formation of the subset of the lipoprotein is decided by this apolipoprotein. It also serves as an activator or inhibitor of enzymes involved in the metabolism of lipoprotein. So like let us take for example, we will see shortly what are all the enzymes involved in the metabolism of lipoprotein. So what we need to try and understand is, we have to understand this cholesterols cannot be transferred directly. So it has to be transferred in a medium or in a vehicle, and this vehicle is made up of this phospholipid outer layer, and this entire structure is called as the lipoprotein. These lipoproteins are given the unique function by its apolipoprotein. Whatever function or whatever the role that the lipoprotein takes is determined by the apolipoprotein. So with this basic understanding about the lipoprotein and apolipoprotein, we will now move on to the metabolism of the cholesterol which happens in the body.